Open your mind. Your mind. Your mind. Your mind.
Hours of power. Hours of power. Hours of power. Hours of power.
And so a community is where you control your police, you control your commerce, you control your education, you control your house. We don't control none of that. We live in a hood. Huh? Well, what about the Negroes that get out? Oh, well, see, my cousin, they say he's a multi-millionaire, almost at $1 billion.
The popular thought
3 PhDs, working on 2 more. Driving down the street in Chicago in his Rolls Royce, enjoying himself, and he hear these sirens and look through the mirror and see this cop car flashing lights. He squeezed the steering wheel, man. Heart beats fast. Because he knows the price of a Negro, what it could be. And then when that cop car passed him by, he said, thank God he wasn't after you in the first place, Paul. That Negro thing you can't get away from. It's universal. They wasn't coming after you. With all your millions, with your Rolls Royce, with your PhD, didn't help. That's the hood. Why do you think you never pick up the paper until you leave over and over and see white families? You think it's thousands of black cops in America. Why don't you see white families crying as black cops shot my loved one 42 times in the back of the head? Why do you think black cops are that? You think they're more spiritual? Think they're better? No! They got enough sense to know that white folks ain't gonna tolerate it. And I will stop in our neighborhood when we decide we will not tolerate it. Now, if we was organized, which is hard to organize people who are just gonna run crazy and you don't know you're crazy. But if we were, with the money we have, and the many people who would come to our aid that don't know what it's like to be a Negro, and we said, if we said, look, we saying, if we don't get a federal law to deal with police brutality, that anytime a cop or anybody carry a gun, have to have a license just like you used to drive a car. And if you use it wrongly, you'll lose your license. And if it's upheld, you can never work again as a cop or a store guard or a private detective. How do you get Congress to push that through? Well, you take your economic power and you call on your friends, black, white, young and old, and say, this coming Christmas, if we don't have a federal law to outlaw police brutality by law, if we call them for a nationwide boycott of Christmas and it'll start on Thanksgiving. Well, let me tell you what that means. 79% of all retail in America happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People stay in business all year, lose money just for Christmas, huh? Well, what happens now? Sac Fifth Avenue, Toys R Us, Sears and Roebuck, Westinghouse. They will get the bill, and all they got to do is make one phone call and say, Harry, that's the senator, I want that bill pushed through in 3 days. Okay, it's an economic thing. It's that simple. But we have the power, but the system has wiped us out so bad.
Hours of power. Hours of power. Hours of power.
San Antonio, Lincoln 6. Go ahead. Clear suspect down, 10-4. That's 10-4. The officer's code 4. We have one suspect that's been shot.
Open your mind. Your mind. Your mind. Your mind. And peace, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Popular Thought Series right here on the old T.P.O.T. YouTube page. I'm your host, X, of course, but you knew that already. That's why your black asses are here. What's good? See the God, brother Little Rock in the house. What's up, Lady Jazzy? I see you up there. Yeah, tonight, special guest tonight, brother LINWOOD Jackson Jr. is in the house, as you can see here. The brother's an author. He's wrote quite a few books. Um, yeah, we're gonna have him up in the house tonight. We're gonna do a little interview and see what's going on with the brother. But before we get started, y'all know, as always, I always start the show off with thanking you good folks, for your likes, your shares, your views, your subscriptions, and of course your hard-earned pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces. Because you do not have to do it. You don't have to watch these streams. You don't have to show up here every damn week. And you damn sure don't have to drop your hard-earned coins on this panel. What's good, Lady Topaz? I see you up there. You don't have to drop your hard-earned coins on this panel. But all of those things, you good folks choose to do so. So every night that I come up here, I'm always going to start off with thanking you, because I don't take you good folks lightly. I don't take what you do lightly. I don't take your support lightly. I don't. Y'all may not believe me, but I've said it enough that you should believe me by now. And as always, man, I'm humbled, I'm honored, I'm appreciative, man, and I'm grateful for all you good folks. All right, you good folks who hang out there, and of course, you good folks who hang out in here. All right. All right. So let's get at it. Yeah, like I said, tonight we're gonna have brother LINWOOD Jackson Jr. will be in the house. And we're gonna talk about the value and worth of God's men. Um, it's my understanding, from brother LINWOOD's bio, that he is a very spiritual man, and he writes mostly about spiritual things, spiritual growth of a man, etc., etc. So we're gonna throw down tonight, man, and you know, we're gonna see what's good, man. We're going to see what's good tonight. Let me see. Make sure I sent. Yeah. Cause y'all know I be doing this shit sometime with my glasses off, man. Be sending people the wrong links and the whole nine. But yeah, man, it's good to be back up here with you good folks, man. Easy week for a brother this week. I ain't doing too much. I decided to take a couple of days off because I have y'all know my seasons coming back around. And a lot of machinery to get ready, a lot of machinery to tune up, uh, change belts, change wires, sharpen blades, change them, all that kind of stuff. So, the next couple of days, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'll probably be doing a few live streams over the course of the next couple of days, because I did take a couple of days off because I got to, get the shop and get all the equipment, work ready for the new season. So you're probably going to see a lot of me over the course of the next couple of days. But without further delay, brother LINWOOD is in the house.
Yes, sir.
Brother LINWOOD Jackson, what's good with it, man?
Man, same. Whole new season of life, whole new season of thinking.
Well, let me ask you this. I read your bio. I haven't got a chance to read any of your books because I don't have any of them. But I read your bio, and you strike me as the type of brother who is strictly about spiritual growth and also complete growth. Am I wrong in that assumption about you?
No, you're not. I would word it differently. I would say devotional plus human growth.
Okay. So are you sanctimonious, or are you just sanctified?
Um, I would say neither. I'm a human being caring for love, whatever you want to call that. I don't have a name for it. I don't think a name for it exists. The type of category that is willing to get to the point of love to abandon knowledge, both prior and present, within and also external, simply just to get to a higher perspective of who he or she is for bettering the age that they're living in. I don't know what you would call that.
So were you always this way? Um, were you were you brought up religious? Were you brought up in the church? Were you brought up, you know?
No, I was the most I would say is because I even asked my mom this question. Like one day I just, so why didn't you, raise me like how you were raised? Because she was raised in the church, and the way that she was raised, it interfered with her secular activities and things in her life. And she told me that if she ever had a son, she would never let her son be held down to any sort of religion because it stopped her from being who she wanted to be. So with that, she, every night as a child, she tells me every night as a child she would read me the book of Proverbs, and I would go to sleep listening to her reading the book of Proverbs. So throughout my life, although it wasn't really religious, it was more of, there is an I that is intelligent and is mindful of your existence. That I knows you. You have to know that eventually that connection will happen. Take it slow, but that I is there. That's all I was raised with. But for where I am right now, life experiences change that. And so you go through different life experiences based off of the philosophies of mother and father and also of society. And you're a little bit confused because you don't know the philosophy within yourself. So not knowing that, I fell into some human traps, ended up getting injured. And from there, I had to understand or decode why I didn't have a knowledge of love within myself. There was no society of a religion, or both secular or religious, that could help me define love. And I looked, and the kind of love I was looking for, I wasn't too ignorant to want to hide myself by a term or by a denomination or by a philosophy or by a doctrine that didn't come from me. So I wanted to know the doctrine that was within me. There was nothing else out there that I had. So I said, listen, if you're it, you better be it because I need it. So I opened up the Bible. I studied the language and the context of the words. To this day, still translating the English into the Hebrew and the English into the Greek and reconstructing the sentences back into English so that I can understand the Eastern philosophy that the book is written in, not the Western context that we mistake it for. And from there, I learned the language of love and the definition of love that I was missing. And ever since then, it's been a wrap.
So often on media, you know, especially when you're talking about black male media, we often discuss the worth of a man and the value of a man and um what a man truly is and what a man truly does. We go all into that here. Do you think that, from your studies and from your writings, have you become the complete man, or is that something you're searching for?
No. And if I had to say that I had become that complete man, I'd be lying completely. Completeness as a male is completeness both in thought and in feeling. I'm not saying that, there's things out there where the man has to be in touch with his feminine side and this, that, and the other. I'm saying there's thoughts particular to a man and feelings particular to a man that when at that highest potential can edify him in order to be able to be industrious internally and externally. That to me, when you can be that industrious externally, but also bringing benevolence into your industry and into the same kind of benevolence that you do within yourself. You've gone through that struggle of self-development. You've gone through understanding that what it means to be a man is not what it means to be a man by society. It's not what it means to be a man by what your father taught you or by what your mother believed a man should be. It's based off of a man, based off of the development of your character, of your thoughts, and of your feelings, and how they interplay with your being. Um, if I had to say I am that man, I'd be lying to you because I'm too young to even be near that. And my experience in and of itself is too young to even counterfeit. I am learning that character, that character of what the living God has placed into the atmosphere invisibly, which has visibly manifested itself into, again, a statement of love and of the knowledge of love. To become internally that invisible statement of the knowledge of love is what it means to be a man, based off of the acts of creation and the character that is in creation and continually within creation, because we're supposed to be a creation. What we see externally is supposed to be reflected inwardly. If it's not being reflected inwardly, I would say that you're not a male, you're not a female. You're stuck being that lower animalistic, natural human being, which we're born with. We're not born with the intelligence of what it means to love. That intelligence isn't in us. We're not born with the intelligence of what it means to be true to who we are. Well, we can get to that point in going through the experience of developing a knowledge that we can then track as data to evaluate who we are and who we are not, and putting that into play to become an original, then we can be male and female.
So the principles that you obviously you put those principles in your writings,
Yeah.
but in your life, everything is based on biblical philosophy. Everything that you do, every move that you make, uh, who you decide to be around, how you operate, is all that. Does all of that come from biblical philosophy?
It comes from the experience within that philosophy. So it's not as if I'm saying these are the 20 principles of life and I need to follow these 20 principles and I need to stay away from whoever doesn't regulate themselves by those 20 principles. It's more like I'm going through those 20 principles, and the knowledge that I'm gaining from that experience is what then allows me to realize that this person is healthy for me. And if this person is unhealthy for me and I'm interacting with them, there's a reason why I'm interacting with them. So as unhealthy as they may be, that burden may be worth their coming up in health. So it's not, the biblical principles are experimented with. We look at, for example, there's two philosophies that are within the Bible. Two philosophies of how to maintain your devotional self, which in turn helps you to regulate your human condition. The first philosophy is you're living in a way where you have to please a divine eye. So in order to please that divine eye, you then have to turn to specific rituals, rites, ceremonies, baptisms, beliefs, commandments, traditions that have been handwritten by philosophers and theologians from times past until times present. And the way to please that divine eye is to honor what has been written and to do what has been written and to believe in what has been written from times past and times present. That's the first philosophy the Bible teaches. The second philosophy the Bible teaches is the eradication of that first philosophy, and in replace is experience. Experience with the words as we're learning the words based off of language and context. Experience with those words so that we in turn become that book that we are striving to follow. We are in turn developing an internal philosophy that we can abide by, that is not, in a sense, religion, but is a personal devotional culture. And that personal devotional culture is our conscience, guiding our human condition, as opposed to something on our neck telling us that we need to follow this in order for our human condition to be all right. So it's the biblical principles put into practice for the complete annihilation of the fact that I need to wear this ring to let me know that I'm all right, or the fact that I need to wear this around my neck, or I need to have this in my ear so that I can constantly remember that I am a child of whoever I'm a child of. The experience is supposed to engrave into the human being a new being. We're born we're born completely done. We're born undone. We're born not ready. But it's being willing to have an open mind for those experiences, willing to accept the fact that you are undone. It's willing to be able to develop a philosophy that undoneness can be made done, and you can go through the struggle of fixing yourself. Now, when you can go through that struggle of fixing yourself alone, you realize that you're going to go through a repeated cycle of continually needing to fix yourself. So then you branch out to different substances, which may not be physical, which may be mental, or may be sensory. You reach out to different substances to help you get in check. Or you can go through an experience, you can suffer without any sort of substance, whether it's physical, mental, or sensory, whatever it is. You can let the experience be your substance, and you can let that experience tally up for you who you are and who you are not, so that you can have knowledge of your character to develop a philosophy that you can live by and that you can know will balance you no matter what situation you're in. That's what, the answer to your question of the biblical principles. Do they regulate me? In a sense, they regulate my thought process of how to be, not to where to be, or not whom I should be with or around. It's that regulation of discipline for self, through the counsels that are written in those words, that when put into play, they begin to allow you to have control over yourself, to dictate your being, not to dictate your being towards a religion, but to dictate your being towards a philosophy that you can call self, self-ownership, self-possession, for the purpose of giving that self benevolently.
Do you think, as men, as black men in this country, are we lacking? Um, are we lacking some of those principles? Are some of those principles that you speak of, can they be injected, into black society, into black men's society specifically? Could that change things for us as black men?
It can, but you would have to you would have to think about what needs to be eradicated in the black society in order for that to happen. You can't really just you can't just put something positive when it's clearly negative. And for me, the I hear so often the number one problem in the black community is the black church, and can can go on a whole thing about that. But the direction, if we're going to talk about, if you're going to call yourself black, and if you're going to associate with whatever African you think you are, and you're going to believe or talk about the history of the Africans and how they lived, and presently there's no trace of that, then the issue has to be, what's holding back that from taking place. And for me, I can only see the inward cultivation of self. What has happened? I'm just born, so I don't have the history that you have. I haven't seen what you have, and I haven't seen what the people behind me have had to see. But from what I've studied, and from what I do study, and from what I study into society, and especially into black society, we're missing what Malcolm X was actually teaching. The debate at that time, I would say, was between integration or black nationalism. And we see the result of integration, because the result of integration is, yes, we are one, but we're still being regulated as though we are none. So, like, when it comes to black nationalism, which Malcolm X was talking about was intelligently getting the community to. Malcolm X wasn't stupid. Malcolm X understood that the person who would call themselves black, that they are their own enemy. And so in order to get that black individual who, to understand that they're not they're not a color. Black is a color. You should rather be called a culture as above as not a color. And Malcolm X understood that the way that society, the media was placing into that. By the time he died, he understood that this was a human issue and not a race issue. And one of the things that he mentioned in one of his talks was that how can somebody from another country going through the same oppression or similar oppression come here and have businesses, but we got no sort of black owned anything. We're still doing this and doing that, but they come here and they do this and they got, where's the support and where's the knowledge in the black community? He was trying to get blacks to develop a level of consciousness to where that they can support their own self through their own self. And he was calling awareness to a civil rights movement because it didn't need to be called a civil rights movement, because when you call it that, it's only regulated to where there is civility or no civility. It became a global thing. It is a global thing. This plays into part exactly with what I write about. What he was trying to do for blacks, I'm trying to do for human beings at this point in time, is that the devotional culture that you have, it regulates how you think and how you feel. The devotional culture in the black community, whose philosophy and who are their seminary trained ministers are coming from places that do not decode the Bible correctly, firstly, and they're coming from a place that is decoding the Bible through a European landscape or through a European paradigm. And so you have a black community saying Jesus, Jesus, when Jesus was hanging you. So it's just about time that the devotional culture has a revolution. And that devotional culture, as I've been studying it and as I've been applying it, its backdrop is language and context. You would think that the one people who should care about language and context are individuals who are society acclaimed to be a color and who has a theory of evolution that has broken them down into a species that is less than another species. So you would think that language and context would mean something to this community. But the root, besides all of the everything I could say or go into, the devotional culture, as human beings, our devotional culture regulates our human condition. So if the devotional culture isn't really fit to the human being, what's going to pop out from that is hatred against one another. It's going to be even more greed in the community. It's going to be even more greed among the ministers of that congregation. It's going to be division. It's going to be a division based on species. It's going to be a division based on theories that have absolutely nothing to do with the present age and for the folks in that age. Getting the philosophy that I'm cultivating personally, learning that color is simply media. Learning that color is simply media, and that even though it is something that is real, it is something that you can't avoid, it's something that's out there, it's something that's pumped. Learning that for us in the Black community, that first of all, we have a history that is completely clouded. And so that language and context of history should lead us not into what is taken, so popularly. the devotional culture. I can't. The devotional culture is what's disturbing what you say from happening. And so if that injected wisdom can reach into the leaders of this community and can do something to move, them away from the regulated seminary trained philosophies that are taught and the Roman European mind that's behind them. If we could stop preaching Jesus, Jesus, to people who don't have money to pay their rent, or to 16-year-old girl with 4 children and her parents have kicked her out, or a 16-year-old girl battling suicide. I've spoken to these people. So if language and context, because Jesus ain't enough. It wasn't enough back then, and it ain't enough now. No matter, it doesn't. I'm not saying Jesus. You could picture whatever Jesus. There's Jesus in the secular realm. There's Jesus in the religious realm. Whatever you want to call Jesus, it ain't enough. In the language and context that I would apply is a philosophy that can get the mind going to see the need to cultivate culture, from within personally, for the purpose of edifying what's going on without.
Wow. Last week I had a pastor on, and he has a congregation in Jackson, Mississippi. And I asked him a similar question last week because you spoke of the black church. And I asked him, you spoke of the devotional culture, that's inside of black society. So I asked him about it too, because he leads a congregation. And I asked him, I said, do you think that a lot of the problems inside of black society, they emanate from the black church? And he agreed. All right. Now, this is a pastor with a big congregation. And I also asked him, I said, well, has the church failed because they have so much power? Make no mistake, the black church has a lot of power in black society, man. Whether we want to admit it or not, the black church has a lot of power. And I asked him, I said, has the church failed because they have so much power that they're not preaching the full message? They're not advising people as they should. And I also asked him, are they teaching true biblical principles? And his answers surprised me, because he admitted that the church has failed black society. In many ways, it's failed black society. But let me ask you this. We as black people, I believe we all have like this Christ complex, maybe I'm wrong, but we have a Jesus Christ complex. You talked about Jesus, 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 Jesus is that picture on the wall that your mama points at when she's scolding you. All right. Jesus is that picture on the wall when your mama is saying, mind me before I go upside your head. So a lot of us, that picture of Jesus inside of our house, that has power. That has power, because it's the first thing you see when you come in the house. It's one of the last things you see before you go to bed. And your mother makes sure, because all our mothers had a picture of Jesus in the house. I'm pretty sure about 80% of us, mom had a picture of Jesus somewhere in the living room. She might have had multiple pictures of him. But let me ask you, far as the whole religious spirituality, knowledge of Jesus, do you think that a person can have all of that and just cut out the black church? Is the black church the problem? Is the black church part of what keeps many of us from, I don't know, reaching our true spiritual self or our true religious self? Or can we get rid of the black church and still have people who are quote unquote spiritual and or religious?
I mean, first I'll say I must have a really rare mother because I had no pictures of Jesus in my house. I mean, but you can't. All right, first of all, I'll just say this: language and context when it comes to the Bible. The way that the phrase Jesus Christ is used in the Greek language, when it's written in context, it's not in reference to a person. There is no historical context. There is no historical. You'll never find anything in history about a literal person called Jesus Christ. This, in and of itself, has been a trap. And just like everything else associated with media and associated with propaganda, again, the black community is taking a hit because you have very, very, very sweet people uh, believing in in a European religious philosophy that has been transformed and translated from an older pagan Roman religion into what we now know as Christianity. Very sweet people believing this, but very cruel ministers going through the hardship of getting an MDiv in it for whatever sake is in them. And I've known rabbis who have gone through the rabbinical schools and have left understanding that because they're not teaching religion, it makes no sense. I have known individuals, pastors, that have come from and are associated with other people that have left the seminary school because they have realized that religion isn't, how can I rephrase that? Religion is taught, but Bible isn't. Um, the person that is going through the philosophy that is within the Bible, their change is inward, their change is mental, and their change in their devotional culture, how they carry themselves, how they are not regulated by what is physical, by what is sensual, but by what is inward, that experience of what it means to be a human and to be a human living by words and in a sense of making those words a reality, not physical, engraved on stone, or not physical with the face of whatever color Jesus with whatever hair we would have him as on the wall, but mental in the sense of the words are becoming you and you are becoming the words, therefore your character is changing. To go through that experience, I don't think the term church would have to be redefined because to go through that experience, you're not really caring for a church. When you're caring for church, you're caring for support for a belief you don't actually have. It's like going to a sports game. You want to be around you, people that share the love of your team. So you want to have the same jersey, you want to have the same headband, and you want to chant the same things. And whoever doesn't like your team, you want to off with their head. So it's sort of like the same thing. It's regulating knowledge and knowledge of what the words are actually teaching will leave that person going through that experience not caring for a community of support by community knowledge. Community knowledge or traditional learning or legend is what keeps church alive. And you've got real sincere people that are going into church ready to hear a legend that they believe is going to do something for them. And all I hear from different people is something's wrong when I go. When I sit there, I don't feel right. Oh, I went, but I just had to get up. It just didn't feel right. And so it gets to the point where is okay, so then if you're not there for that and you're not feeling right, why is the intention for you to know what you want to know stopped because of a feeling? Well, why is the intention for you to know whatever you're in has some practical development for you, but because somebody's standing up there and isn't giving you the right feeling, that personal development which you know you should take, you don't want to take up. And I would say that's the main challenge. To defeat that sort of mindset, you don't need a church. I'm constantly asked, I can't see you in a church. Do you even go? What do you do? And it's sort of like that sort of mind when it goes through that stage of development, it doesn't need a community to support itself because its support is the community within. To me personally, that development for the community within, because we have so many voices within us, to get that straight, that can then allow us to go out and do something within a field that is, defined as a church, that we can then go into that organization and benefit it from our position, from the character development that we went through. So for somebody going through that, I really, if in a perfect world, the ministers, the black ministers that would, abandon the philosophy that they are trained in to keep, whatever they have keep in coming in, and get to language and context, there would be a change. There would be a definite change because there ain't nobody who loved God more than some black people. That's all I know my entire life. God this, Jesus that, God this, Jehovah that, Jesus this, Jesus that. If you could get some language and context into the mind of the community, which are the pastors, get them from theology, which theology, you break that word down, theos, that's the theos translates in Greek to God. And that has nothing to do with the God of the Bible. That is the God of, you think of Zeus, or you think of Jupiter, or you think of El, or you think of Saturn. That's theos. And then you've got ology, in Greek translates to science. So you've got theology meaning the science of God, or the science of theos, or the science of whatever we would take God to be. And that is not a real science at all. That is a branch of learning, that is a paradigm that fits the mind for it. And if we're going to talk about the black community and the problems in it, that paradigm is not doing one thing for us. That paradigm has actually blinded us from the fact that we need to have a mind and that we need to actually think how to develop culture and how to develop a culture that is both human and philosophical. To do that, that would give the black community strength that Malcolm X was trying to give them when he was going. It all begins with the devotional mind. We are as physical as we may be. I'm looking at you and you're looking at me. If I touch you, you touch me, you can feel something solid, but we are not physical. And it begins with developing that non-physical part first. Get that developed first. Then the physical will be regulated. Then the physical will become disciplined. Then the physical will know because a higher intelligence is ordering it. Now, if you could get that within the black community, within the leaders within that community, and if you can, let that experience, if they can let that experience go, it won't be about money. It won't be about pride. It won't be about, as you said, the Jesus complex, holier than thou. It won't be about you this, but I'm this skin color. My blackness is greater than your likeness. Or it won't be about I'm in this suit, so therefore I have the image of of somebody from society who is European, and so I'm trying to mimic that person, that European style culture in my own black community. So I'm about to rob you now, like they rob, and they do it, and they build up industry, and that's how it goes. It's love, love, and the knowledge of love. I mean, that every community needs, but that the black community needs more so, because as young as I am, I've known um, nothing but hate between blacks in the black community. I've never seen anything that positive, and if I did, it was on a level of fakeness. And that level of fakeness has to do a whole lot with Jesus, and with the Jesus that is developed from a culture that is European and that is traditionally passed down and was a different name 2,000 years ago. It was not called Jesus 1,000 years ago. It was not called Jesus 5,000 years ago. Every 1,000 years, this figure gets a new name. This figure comes up, gets a new name, and we're mystified by it. So you get this figure in the black community, and you're teaching this community that no matter what you do, if you just believe on this figure, you're destined for greatness, both temporally and eternally. So you let that sort of theology permeate in the black community, which is naturally enraged against one another for reasons that that have been implanted strategically throughout generations. You get that going. You add theology into that, and you've got a mixed division even worse than if there was. It's just a tragedy. That's why I'm saying the devotional culture and the philosophy of that devotional culture, should that be number one, you'll see a definite change.
Well, we spoke of the Jesus complex, and you spoke of, I say again, the devotional culture of black society, but we have this ingrained in us, and you would think, being that we have so much of this religion, spirituality, God and Jesus and church, we have so much of that woven into the fabric of black people. It makes you question why parts of black society are the way that they are. Because these things are so woven into the fabric of black people, you would think that in certain pockets of black society, things would be better. Because just like it's woven into the society of black people who aren't part of that, it's woven into the society of the people who are part of that as well. Do you think that that itself has an effect, or should I say, has a cause and effect on, those pockets of society where, brothers is getting shot by the dozens every weekend, uh, poverty, crime, uh, illegitimacy, uh, and everything else you could mention? Do you think that devotional culture has that kind of turned around? Has it been flipped upside down on the people who live under those conditions?
Yes. If I'm hungry, I'm gonna rob you. God understands. If I see you and you look good, and I want to have my way with you, I'm okay. Because by Jesus' blood, I can rape you. I can get you pregnant and not even take care of my child. Because Jesus' blood forgives me. It's the context of that philosophy. And you say that you would think that religion come into a place with God and all this would make it better, but that's not what religion is supposed to do. The Bible, the philosophy within the Bible, and I have only found this within the Bible, is the one thing that we should stay away from is religion. In the book of James, um, true religion and pure religion before the living God is this. I'm going to skip to the second part where it says, you keep yourself spotless from the world. In the Bible, the way that the world is defined, the world isn't the natural environment. The world isn't the trees with the squirrels and the air. The world isn't the earth, the literal earth in the Bible. The way that the Bible defines the world is the world of religion. For example, if I was a boxing person, my world would be boxing. If I was a basketball player, my world would be basketball. If I was sports, my world would be sports. If I was cooking, my world would be cooking. The Bible is very particular with its language and how it uses the context of the words that it uses. The word world in the Bible, in every bit of the context that it is used, and in every phrase, that world means world of religion. The devotional mind is supposed to be free and liberated from the world of religion. Because the world of religion, through its philosophy of needing deeds, rites, baptisms, and the obedience of commandments written by theologians from time past till time now, that's unhealthy for the human condition. So you bring that philosophy of you need to do this and you need to do that right in order to please God. And if you're going to do this and if you're going to keep doing it, then you're going to keep pleasing him. You bring that into a community, I can't see anything but ruin. If you're going to tell me that religion can save me and that the me that religion is supposed to save is whatever me happens after I'm dead, how I live right now does not matter. That's why the other day I saw some minister with a jet. So it's sort of like I would not expect religion to make anything any better, because if anything, religion hides you from you. So when religion is entered into the fold, so you don't have to realize that your human condition is completely undone. If you don't realize that your human condition is completely undone, the whole human developmental process kind of retards itself, because you have nothing to let you know that your state of being is in neglect. Okay, so then let's replace that state of neglected being with a figure. And let's replace that state of being not just with a figure, with a human being that we could put into a community, and so that he could stay there and be the representative of that figure and of the philosophy of that figure, who really never gave that philosophy himself, but the philosophy was written by philosophers, again from a Roman European mindset. Enter that into the community. Let the community be ruled by this image and by the fact that you can please God by just submitting yourself and submitting your money, relinquishing your will to a belief that some demigod's blood can do something for you. Then you can do anything in the world. Not only can you do anything in the world, good or bad, if you do anything in the world, good or bad, with a good spirit, you can go live with that demigod forever and ever, worshiping that same demigod who protected you while you were doing evil, but you were so convinced that it was good, it didn't weigh on your conscience enough, so you're blessed. So enter that sort of philosophy in, and completely manipulating the words of the Bible, because blood does not mean blood. The body does not mean body. Nothing means what it means within the Bible. The Bible is a book of allegories. The Bible is analogical in the way that it decodes what it's saying to the point where you have to get into the reality of those words in order to understand the real meaning behind it. To take what is there as the complete meaning, which goes on in theological seminaries. To take the surface as being the entire, and to take the surface as being the field, is to misinterpret everything. The book in and of itself is written from an Eastern mind. It's translated into a Western perspective. Each year, a new Bible is created so that the agenda of specific religion can get preached, lead further leading minds into the deception of the script that it's trying to get for its character called Jesus. You put that into the Black community, where you have people that already are cast aside, especially at this time in COVID. People are already cast aside, and you add in the spice of religion into it. It won't get any better. But taking religion out, or said that wrong, not taking religion out, revamping or refreshing religion, refreshing the thought of religion in a sense that it's no longer based on what to do, it's based on how to do it, not physically, but mentally. That change from physical, that shift from physical to mental, it will change everything. Because when learning what's mental, you're learning perspective. In learning perspective, you're seeing that there is no such thing as self without other. To know that there's no such thing as self without other is a level of brotherhood that transcends brotherhood. It's a level of humanity that transcends humanity. To know that there's no self without other, this is something that religion takes away, because when you place religion into there's no self in religion, and the other in religion is only a propaganda for self to be seen or to be felt as being alive. To get the aspect of charity, the philosophy of charity according to religion, or any sort of thing that is physical that religion would employ, any sort of ritual, to get the human spirit alive to believe that God is watching. That takes away from the level of humanness that you need to feel and that you need to think about, not necessarily from the act, but from the reflection of the act. That reflection, we need it. That act from benevolence and from a place of knowledge and from a place of sensing, becoming aware through the sensory experience of you are not right as a human being, as opposed to you are not right as a human being, but a specific figure has made it all right for you. That changes the outlook.
So you don't believe that the Bible is a quote unquote religious
No,
text. You
no.
think it's more of a scientific text. Is that your approach as far as the Bible is concerned? Like it's more scientific than it is religion. Do you think the Bible doesn't have anything to do with religion at all, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Well, the two philosophies within the Bible does teach religion, but then the Bible corrects itself by teaching against it, by teaching the philosophy that is against it. So the Bible exposes what religion is so that you can know to stay away from it, and introduces what to drive towards so that you can be enlightened to stay away from what religion is. The Bible in and of itself is not a book about religion. Religion is decapitating uh, to the human being and to self. The Bible is a book about liberating self from religion so that you personally can become a philosophy that you can live by, and live by in a sense through the counsels within it. So the philosophy that you develop through that experience that becomes, in a sense, quote unquote, your religion, as opposed to having the traditional sense of a religion where you are dictated in your experience as to what to feel and as to what to think through your behavior. The philosophy within the Bible is that your behavior should be dictated by your experience with the words that are within it. Those words, that's the knowledge we need. As a matter of fact, I'm publishing a new book called Justification, and it touches on this subject. The way that it's traditionally taught, you know, that term justified is used so loosely and so vaguely. Justified traditionally, you know, you've got this figure who has died for you, and you're justified to receive whatever you believe you should receive based on your genuine belief on whatever you should believe of that person and what you're going to receive of him. On the flip side, the way that the Bible actually teaches justification is that the just are created through knowledge. I just quoted Proverbs. Justification is through the development of knowledge within and the experience of that developed knowledge to gain more knowledge to use as data to continually refine, prune, and prove your character. To be justified means to be in the sense of the language, means to be clean or clear in your mind devotionally. So to be clean and clear in your mind devotionally takes a step away from what is traditional and a movement towards a knowledge of what is beyond tradition and what is personal. That level of justification, because the Bible teaches in its philosophy to remove self from religion, the whole point is to be clean and clear in your mind about who you are and who you are in relation to those words, to the fact that you don't need religion anymore. Your mind is clean, your mind is clear, you can move away from that old step, from those old manners of thoughts and feelings to new manners of thoughts and feelings, where your experience now dictates your behavior, and in a positive way. So now you can go through frustration, and now you can go through rage. But now what you're going through, you're gonna have a mark on your heart to let you know, why did I act that way? This is why I acted that way. Okay, so then this is what that counsel said. I failed to do it. Why did I fail to do it? Okay, so I was going through that emotion. So this is what happened to cause it's the reflective aspect. It's the reflective aspect that causes us to transcend from believing in the philosophical definition of religion to actually possessing a philosophy that we can call our own devotional conscience.
So, do you believe that we are God's men? Do you believe that um we're automatically God's men? And because I've been told this before, and I'll ask you. I was told that we're all God's men. It's just that sometimes we have to realize it. What's your take on that?
Tricky question, tricky answer. It's tricky because it depends on how you define God. Um, if we're going to define God traditionally, then sure, let us all be created in God's image and let us all be God's men. But the philosophy within the Bible defines God as, in every sort of sense where the word lines up, the word God translates to strength, and the word strength translates to wisdom. So in that very first line, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, the original translation of that word, of that phrase, the Word, means the speech or the wisdom. There's a specific wisdom that was given that we are supposed to know. And this specific wisdom is supposed to be called, or is to be acknowledged as God to us, in the sense that it is the ruling governor of our thoughts and feelings. In that sense, no. Until language and context can get down to the definition of what that wisdom is and can regulate the human being by that wisdom, we are not men of that wisdom. We are continually men of self. For me personally, learning the Bible definition of God, which I have come to find transcends the definition of God within religion, assimilating myself to that wisdom within the Bible and to the philosophy that it teaches, which is the philosophy of coming into newness of being through experiencing self full on, not hiding from self, reflecting on self, taking knowledge of self, and recycling that experience continually, getting not no feeling no discouragement for the loss of consciousness that you have as a human being, but learning how to regulate yourself through that loss of consciousness to develop a higher level of consciousness so that you do not return to that past or former state of being, but you can transcend it and move on to the next challenge of what it means to be a human male and to be a human female at this point in time. In that sense, I have never seen a man of God. In the traditional sense, I've seen many men of God, and the reflection of the character of that God is in them. And they are that child of their God, and they reflect the character of that God. And so you can say, you can say in that sense, yes, depending on the definition of God, if we're going to go traditional or if we're going to go actual. Traditionally, you can say sure. Actually, you can say no. It takes a whole lot more for you to be in tune with the living God's philosophy, and it takes a whole lot more of an experience for you to be in tune with that philosophy if you're going to call yourself a son or a daughter of it.
You said something earlier that I want to go back to. You said that there is no, I want to get this right. You said that there is no, or there was no physical manifestation of Jesus, right? That's what you said earlier,
That's
correct?
tricky. Yeah.
Let- let's
The character in Christianity, the character.
expound on that, if you will.
Sure, I will. There was a real man, and the Bible talks about this real man in the book of Deuteronomy. This real man did not come from a place called heaven. This real man was not sent down from a place that was associated to a figure we would look at as Zeus, or some kind of human divine figure with some kind of lightning bolt in his hand with white eyes and gray hair. There was a real man who was a rabbi. This rabbi taught a philosophy that counteracted the general Jewish tradition of what the definition of God was. And God is not a being, God is not a figure. The Bible depicts the definition of God as equating to philosophy or wisdom. So that term God literally means philosophy or wisdom or devotional knowledge. The Jews taught a devotional knowledge that in order to please whatever divine figure they believed in, which they called Jehovah, certain acts, rites, and beliefs needed to be kept and maintained. Now, this real man came along and he taught that this is not in service to any sort of anything that is legitimate. True service to what is legitimate begins within the spirit of the mind. It begins with the changing of the character of the mind devotionally first, and affecting the human being secondly. And from that second act, it depends on that characterization of the devotional character to then move outwardly and to affect the age in a way that is inwardly being affected. The real man was crucified because this philosophy counteracts the traditional Jewish philosophy of what God is. You can't walk around saying that God is a wisdom. You can't walk around saying that God is not a being to people that have rituals and rites and that have idols and that make sacrifices to a figure that they believe exists. You can't really revolutionize the age that way, and so that's why he was killed. So there was a real man. And the way that the Bible uses language, the term Jesus Christ, it's not a literal term designated on a person. In the Bible, that term, it's a term referring to a philosophy. It's a term referring to a doctrine. Jesus, translates within the Bible to Joshua. Joshua was a form of a savior or a leader. Christ, in a sense, translates to Messiah or deliverer. The association of this human being as Jesus Christ is philosophically translated to a doctrine leading or delivering out of religious or devotional slavery, because this is what Joshua did. The Bible goes from literal physical to illustrative, from the beginning of the Bible to the end. Literal physical to illustrative. By the time you reach a certain point in the Bible, it's no longer about literal. The example of what was literal is translated to take the mind higher than what is actually being written. So the association of this figure called Jesus Christ is it's a nickname. It's for example how you've got someone that was called Paul, but originally he was called Saul. These two names have different meanings. The transition from Saul to Paul is a transition from one devotional character to the next devotional character. The Bible gives nicknames to specific ministers to represent what those ministers taught and to represent what those ministers stood for. This figure called Jesus Christ, it's what this individual stood for as a philosophy. On the flip side, you have a character called Jesus Christ that Christianity has transformed into its main LeBron James. This figure, before becoming Jesus Christ, because the religion was a Roman religion, before this time he was called Apollo, and before this time he was called Tammuz, and before this time he was called Baal. So the historical credibility of this figure that can do, as is in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, incredible deeds, which are not written to be taken as they're written. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is a parable. And the book of Luke, specifically in the first 5 verses, confesses that what we are reading is not a literal document. It is a document written off of previously written manuscripts, that have been written to puff up a perception or a religion. And this one figure was used to manipulate the religion. So they took a real person and they wrote many, many manuscripts of him, and they built up a sort of a lore about him, the same way we do today with all types of figures. I mean, I think about Black Jesus and I think about Tupac. He's even the one that said, he's coming back. You think about all these figures, Michael Jackson, you think about Prince, you think about all these figures that are hyped up, and they're the lore of them, especially going back. There's different figures. The lore that is attached to these figures in the Black community specifically They're to be messiahs. The script that is written in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is that a society created a figure to mislead. And so that's just what it was, and what it became is what it is today. The misleading of this one figure is now what it is today. And there was an agenda for that. What good is it that one man should die, yet our nation, one man should live, yet our nation should die? What is it that one man should go about doing this, that, and the other, yet our nation should suffer? So, I mean, this council written, studying this, the language that is used, there was a council that framed everything. And what we have today is an institution that was built off of this cult and the magnification of this cult's created figure to continue to let a specific philosophy live. Speaking a bit vaguely, but there's a whole lot of details in there that when you get down to the real man versus this figure called Jesus, the two are different. For example, the philosophy of the Christian Jesus, you have to, believe in certain rights connected to him. You have to believe in certain things connected to him. You have to trust on his day of worship. You have to go on that day of worship and fulfill certain obligations. You have to fulfill certain obligations in seminary for this figure. Contrary to this, the real man actually taught that there should be no such things as fulfilling obligations to please any sort of anything. So you have the real man talking about a sort of inward revolution away from religion. And then you've got the Christian Jesus talking about, that's not right. Let's bring it back to religion. So there's two viewpoints and there's two characters. And besides that one point, there's the historical character of if we're looking for Jesus and if we're looking for Jesus to come back again, it's not valid. The reality is there was it's not entertaining, may not be entertaining for me, but this rabbi was so revolutionary in his doctrine to get minds liberated so that they can actually feel their human experience, to treat one another as human beings, to better their environment while bettering themselves also. This figure, this real man, was killed for that doctrine and for that philosophy, and was replaced and was covered up with a philosophy contrary to his.
So you're saying there are two Jesuses, so to speak. You're saying there's the Jesus of history, which would be the quote unquote real Jesus, and then there is the Jesus of philosophy, and that is the one that's wrote about in the Bible. Now, the church will call this blasphemy, brother Linwood. They would say, don't listen to this man. This man is blasphemous. I know. I have church people in my family, bishops, pastors, and I was raised by church folks. Can't you tell? And they would say, this dude is a blasphemer. But you talk about the Bible in more of a scientific historical context, though. The rank and file black person that's into religion or church or whatever, they're going to talk about the Bible. They're going to talk about Jesus in more of the religious, tone. They're not going to talk about it in the historical nature or the scientific nature of the Bible itself. They're going to talk about it more as this symbol of their religion. Do you think that because the Bible itself, because I'm going to be honest with you, all right, and I talked about this with the pastor last week, a lot of the people that sit in the pew folks in black church, a lot of them have never even read the Bible.
Yeah.
A lot of them have never read it. They're just the preacher's up there. He's in the pulpit, and he's sweating and wiping his forehead, and the band is playing in the background, and he's just quoting, whatever pieces of scripture he prepared for that day. I know my grandfather was a bishop. I used to bookmark. It's a bookmark on for them. He gets up there and he talks about whatever he's going to talk about, and a lot of those people that are sitting out there, they've never even read that particular verse.
Yeah.
Forget the Bible itself. They've never read that verse. So let me ask you this. Because the Bible is pushed as the quote unquote holy book, it's not necessary in most church circles for the church folk to even read the Bible, is it? Because they're gonna take their cues from the preacher or the pastor anyway, right?
Man, that hurts. I mean, because I want to say yeah, but no. If you're, so many disappointed people are sitting there. Like, there are people that are sitting there that are waiting for that pastor to quote unquote convert them. And when it's not happening, that's what keeps them going. That's what keeps them giving their money. That it's their confidence in the fact that what they're hearing, that's what's gonna convert them to whatever they inwardly feel needs to be converting. But my thing is I try to get my audience to just, if you have that, why are you letting your conscience be dictated by another? That's something Paul even wrote to the First Corinthians. His letters are written to ministers, and in one thing that he says is, why should the liberty of my conscience be judged by the state of another man's mind? Literally, the way that the apostles taught the Bible, the way that the apostles taught the philosophy of the Bible to ministers, is that to escape the traditional route and to venture into what the language and context of the words mean, you are being a voice box, not for a statement. You're being a voice box for an experience. You're being a voice box for an experience, not necessarily a statement. So you have to be up on what is knowledgeable. You have to be up on what is not knowledgeable. And you have to know this philosophy inwards and out by experiencing it. And of course, Christian ministers did not take Paul's advice, and instead they placed into their religion former Jewish methods in their priesthood and in their society. And they also cultivated into their culture Roman paganism, which is what we today have. We have a mixture of Christianity is modern Jewish Roman paganism. And you've got people that are sitting there, they know that what they're hearing, it is not relevant, but their hands are still up, they're still sweating, they're still giving them money, and then they go home and watch a football game. And then, what is the experience? It goes back to what we were saying earlier about community, that feeling of community, that feeling of church. What is that staple of church for? And if a right placement of a devotional culture got into that community, how it would change the lives of those that are sitting there, and especially the one that is standing there talking. Because you're right, and it's cruel that the Bible really in this culture isn't needed, because one, there's already an assumption of a belief of a perfect knowledge of the character of, or the figure of Jesus Christ. So who needs the Bible when through folklore, I already know it. Secondly, folklore has allowed me to know it so much that I could sit here and listen to someone who is trained up in it, and I can know more of it through them. But then it just gets to the point where you're just sitting there, at least the folks I've spoken to that have been very honest with me, to let me know that what they're hearing, it's now becoming obsolete, and that what they're hearing is no longer relevant to them, and that what they're hearing is no longer relevant to the age. And even certain pastors that I speak to tell me that what they're saying they no longer have full belief or trust in because it's not real. You're teaching theology. You're teaching an ology of theos. You're teaching a science of theos. Theos, in and of itself, has much historical credibility as the character of Jesus within the Christian religion. Theos is, or what we would term God. There is an intelligent mind within this atmosphere that has been given power to create. This power to create through time has been called quote unquote God. Way back, it was called El, which we know the term Elohim and all that. These, the term God has come from naming this intelligent mind that creates. This intelligent mind that creates has been called God. And a legend and a narrative has been built from handwritten ministers and priests of this intelligent mind, which in essence is nameless. The creator put that intelligent mind to create, to fulfill the will of creation. Human beings have taken that invisible intelligent mind and have created a narrative around it. So here you have theology teaching this narrative. And the narrative is so catchy, like a song. It's so catchy. And it's so catchy because it resonates with our natural human condition. We are lazy. Human beings are lazy. We love ease. We love what is easy. We love to think about not thinking. And whatever can be had without effort, that's what we want. That's our natural human condition. The narrative framed around God fits. It fits our human condition. And it makes us lazy in our development as human beings, which is its downfall. What that real figure, that real man did, he came into the world of where this religion was, or where this narrative was prominent. And he revolutionized it by saying that the narrative is false. He revolutionized it by saying that that intelligent mind you called God wasn't there by accident, but there is a living creator that actually gave that intelligent mind power. So what you're calling God is actually not anything. You revolutionize that thought. And when you revolutionize it in that way, it makes what's physically established for religion, it aggravates it. It aggravates it. Because now it's no longer a physical act I can do to please whatever narrative I believe God is. You're going to tell me that now I have to go through an experience of living and of taking credibility of my actions and of my faults. And while I'm taking credibility, I have to reflect on it. And while reflecting on it, I have to develop a philosophy that can better myself. And while I'm developing a philosophy that can better myself, I have to correct myself also. And while correcting myself also, I have to feel the pain of that. And I also have to feel the pain of that for the sense of coming into who I am as a human being, as opposed to hiding behind a narrative. No, we can't have that. I'm not trying to think. I'm not trying to feel. I'm not trying to feel. So like
So,
when it, yep,
so we should be looking. So we should be looking at God as a philosophy, as opposed to looking at God as this mystical being or mystical entity that's in the sky.
that's how the Bible
Basically.
breaks it. That's how the Bible's philosophy breaks it down.
Hmm. Now you know they would call this blasphemy too, brother
Sure,
Linwood. They would call this
sure.
blasphemy.
Hey,
Um,
they killed the real man for it. The, they killed him for it, for saying this.
yeah, I've heard somewhat of this tale before that Well, I've heard a lot of things because, like I said, I was raised
Yeah.
around a lot of church folks. And, I've heard that variation of the story before where, Jesus was actually someone named Joshua and, he
Oh,
was
no, I'm
killed.
not
He,
saying
w-
that.
he was, he was killed, and he didn't, walk on water and
No.
and he didn't, turn water into wine and all that other kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff was like kind of added in. Um, so if there is no real physical, or should I say there is no real uh religious or Christian Jesus, so to speak. So does that mean that the Bible is untrue? Because the Bible speaks of this physical Jesus. It speaks of all these acts, the turning the water into wine and the walking on water and the bringing people back to life and all these mystical magical things. So does that mean that because if he was just a regular man who taught, he probably didn't have all these powers.
Uh,
So does that mean that the Bible is untrue?
um, yes and no. The Bible is a contradiction. The Bible is full. The Bible is a book of contradictions, and the Bible is a book of contradictions only because of the mind that it's written in. To us, naturally sitting here, yes, none of that makes sense. To the mind that wrote the Bible, ain't no contradiction there. It's a matter of language and context. Yes, water was turned to wine. But according to the mind that wrote it, what is the definition of water and what is the definition of wine? That's where it's at. If we're gonna read that on the surface, it's gonna be a folklore. And in a sense, it's supposed to sound like a folklore, just like any secret society would have the members know the knowledge of it, and those that are outside not know the knowledge of it. The Bible is written for individuals that care to know language and context and how it relates to them. The Eastern philosophy is not like the Western philosophy. The Bible is a book of beautiful contradictions. And I love the contradictions that are in it. There are more errors in the Bible than there are complete sentences. And I love that because that's only a measure of translating information into knowledge. Those errors are there because the words that were placed were not placed correctly by the translators. That's why they purposely put those words in italics. That's intentionally. They know that those are not the right words. But the right mind has to come along and understand that because those aren't the right words, I have to find the right words. So learning what those right words are, you find that there are no contradictions in the Bible at all. And even as I'm studying the Bible, it'll say one thing, it'll say another thing, it'll say one thing and another thing and then another thing. But it's when you can get the language lining up with the context of those words that you realize, wow, those contradictions are actually dots, pieces of a puzzle.
Well, I've never looked at it that way. I've often questioned the Bible. I guess because of the people who were well, I had many people around me coming up. I had people who were so heavily bound they were no earthly good. And I also had people who had their head stuck in the Bible so deep that they couldn't see anything else. And I had real live Bible thumpers. Everything was the Bible. Every time they talked, boy, they had that good book in their hand talking. So I've seen it from many different angles. Coming. I guess that's why I'm not involved with religion right now, because I was around so many religious folk when I was a young guy. Just had me like I just need to get away from all of you because none of the stuff that any of you are saying makes any sense. So that's probably why I'm so disenfranchised with religion today. and shoot, my dad. My dad used to say one of the biggest turnoffs, because I was telling the pastor this last week. I said, my dad said one of the biggest turnoffs to Christianity is Christians. And he's right. You look at some of these Christian folk and you're like, wow, man, if that's what being a Christian is, I don't want any part of it. I don't want to keep you here too much longer, but I do want to ask you this. When you talk to the so-called Christians or religious folks or whoever you talk to,
Yeah.
do they think that you're blasphemous with your beliefs? Do they think it's blasphemous to think of the Bible as a historical text as opposed to a religious text? Do they think it's blasphemous to speak of the philosophy of Jesus as opposed to the physical manifestation of Jesus that's in the Bible? How do they how do they take you when y'all discuss these things? Those Bible thumpers.
It's I'll say interesting because you get variations. You get some that will actually listen and then they go, well, I've been living this way for 65 years, and how am I supposed to let a sort of philosophy dictate my experience? Or or you hear them say, I've been knowing. It's been positive. I'll say it's been positive because the way that things are going, a lot has been coming out, a lot that we're going through, where it's sort of like there's now people that are just questioning the whole definition of God according to theology. So, the books that I'm writing, the responses that I'm getting, it's almost as if the last response I got was, thank you for saying something that wasn't so traditional. Thank you for saying something that was enlightening, that I've never heard before. Those are the kind of responses that I'm getting. So what we're going through in society right now is showing a lot of the character of, as you say, Christians, and also more so the Christian religion. Because while you still have those people that believe that this COVID season is some kind of plague or something, you've got other people going, well, damn, if God loved us, then why is this plague happening if he loves us? Or why, if there's love, then, so the whole nature of God right now in my field is being questioned. And there's an openness to hearing, whether it's in the church or out of the church, that the definition of God, according to language and the way that it's used contextually, is wisdom. And so the question is now turning, what is this wisdom? Or what is this philosophy? So the turn has been those, they're still out there. I've gotten hate also. I've gotten somebody tell me you're gonna go to hell for the way you use the words of the Bible and you teach them. So there's folks out there that still are so ingrained in the folklore and so attached to it that it's sort of like the theory is just infallible. But then on the other spectrum, there's folks that are actually saying, well, this theory needs to be questioned. And I'm thankful that there's somebody out there that's doing more than questioning it, but that's actually using its own book against it to show the validity of what is in the book and not necessarily of what is supposed to be from that book. So it's a mixed pot of reactions out there.
Wow. Now you said that you have another book. You're about to release another book.
Justification.
Okay. And how many books have you written to date? How many books have you written?
7 total.
Wow.
7 total.
So this next book, I guess, will be of the ilk of the books that you write. You folks can see them behind me here. tell everybody, you know, how they can get in contact with you, how they can get their hands on your books, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you can go to my website, linwoodjacksonjr.com, linwoodjacksonjr.com, or you could type my name into Google, into Bing. You could type my name into any search engine. I'll pop up, and right under me, you'll find my books. You'll find videos. You'll find everything related to me.
Yep. And I am putting it in the chat right now, folks. So get on down there. Check out brother Linwood Jackson Jr.
Yes, sir.
I know a lot of you, the people who are watching this on the playback, I know you'll listen to this and you'll be like, this guy's views are very unconventional. Exactly.
Like that,
Exactly.
the scientist.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's how I you know, not to label you or nothing like that, brother Linwood, but that's how I kind of see you, your approach. Um, you're like a biblical scientist. You know, I when you first came on, I expected you to be one of those, you know, Bible thumping, you know, but as I start to talk to you, I realize that that's not you at all. Um, you're more into the historical slash scientific philosophy of the Bible as opposed to the whole religious, sanctimonious, the nonsense that we get fed, and it's probably ruining us as black folks. Um, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Thank
You
you.
gotta come. You gotta come back. Uh, when's the new book coming out? When's the new book due to come out?
Mid to late March.
Okay,
So mid to
so
late March. If
you
anything,
might have
early April.
to come back, man, when you release that new book, man, so we can discuss it a little more. What I'm gonna do, man, I'm gonna go out and grab one of your books and read one. I'm not gonna read all 7 of them now. That I'm not doing, but I will read one. The one growth has piqued my interest. I think I'm going to get that one.
The book of
That one is
poetry. That's a book of poetry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm going to get that one. So I'll at least be able to talk about that particular book. You know, I said to myself when we were emailing back and forth, I was like, damn, I said I should at least order one of his books and read it. I said, but what I'll wait. I said I have to wait to see if he one of them Bible thumpers first.
Right.
Because
I feel. I
if he's a Bible thumper, I'm not
yeah.
reading this book.
I
But
feel you on that.
yeah. So now that we've talked, I see that you're not, you know, throwing Bibles at me. You know,
No.
I'm gonna go ahead and get I'm gonna get growth. I'm gonna go ahead and order that. And then I'll go ahead, man, and we can talk about that. I don't know. Maybe I'll read 2 of them by the time you come back. Yeah, I don't know. But you
Sure.
gotta come back, man, when you know, when the new book is coming out. You have
Yep.
my information.
Yep.
We can get up. What part of the country are you in?
Massachusetts, USA. I'm in
Oh, you up.
Massachusetts.
Oh, you all the way up there. Damn, that's too far. That's too damn far from North Carolina. But anyway,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
if you ever get to North Carolina, look OX up. And like I said, when you release the new book, man, go ahead and hit us up, man.
Will
Once
do.
again, everybody, brother Linwood Jackson Jr., author, poet, all of that, not in capital letters, not a Bible thumper, but a Bible historian and scientist is what I will call him.
Thank you.
His if y'all look over in the chat room right here this way, go ahead, look in the chat room. Brother Linwood's site is there. Go there, man. Hit his website up, man, and see what he got going there, man, and order a few of his books. He's obviously a dedicated author. He's got 7 books out already. I'm going to order 1, maybe 2, read them, and when he comes back, we can discuss them. I appreciate you coming on, brother, man, and you know, good talk tonight, man, and hit me up, man. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you
Uh,
having me. You know, it's not easy, but you know, when to get something real, out there. So I
oh,
appreciate,
absolutely,
yeah, I appreciate what
absolutely.
you're
And
doing.
like I said, man, you got to come back.
Thank
All
you.
right. Appreciate you, brother. Peace.
Thank you.
Yeah, folks, just got off the line with brother LINWOOD Jackson Jr. He is the author of all of these good books that you see behind me. Let me see. I think I have. Y'all know I'm old, so I'll be forgetting. Let me see if I have. I thought I had a green screen of just the books. Let me see. Yep, I do. Yeah. So you can see Brother Linwood's books here. Growth, the one I'm going to order here. Battle of Hosts, A Fallen Record, the Bible Sabbath, and the one behind me I can't freaking see. This one right here, can't see either because of this other microphone. Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion. We talked about that tonight, y'all. We talked about it. Because I say again, Brother Linwood, he writes according to the biblical philosophy, not from this religious standpoint. It's different than that. Because I went through when I read his Bible. Not his Bible. Look at me, Freudian slip. When I read his bio, I should say, when I was reading his bio, just by the things that was in his bio, he looks at the Bible from a more a historical context. It's actually very interesting. I suggest y'all go to his site and check him out, man. I mean, he has a very unconventional way of looking at the Bible. He doesn't talk about the Bible the way, your mom did or your grandfather did or your auntie did, or nah. He doesn't talk about the Bible like that, man. He talks about it from a philosophical and historical context and a scientific context as well. I know the people that I know, they heard him talk, especially the church folks I'm related to. They'll be like, oh, this is blasphemy. He's blasphemous. He is blasphemous. That is what they would say, man. That's what they would say because he has an unconventional kind of slant on biblical philosophy, man, and it's actually quite interesting, man. I don't know if y'all was here last week when I had Dr. Neal on, the pastor from Jackson, Mississippi, and he has a somewhat unconventional look at religion itself. I mean, he actually agreed with me. This is a pastor of a congregation that actually agrees with OX. Can you believe it? So, his outlook as far as religion and stuff goes is somewhat unconventional as well. I know y'all saying to yourself, oh, X, he bringing all these God people up here. No, it's not that I'm bringing this God people up here. What I'm doing is I'm showing y'all different looks and I'm giving y'all different perspectives. I have one more person that I want to bring through. This person is I don't want to say they're religious. I'm not going to say they're religious, but they have a view on God that I think is quite interesting, and I want to bring them through, man, and put them in front of y'all, man, and you know, see what y'all think. You know, I don't know what y'all thought of Brother Linwood, but I thought he was very interesting. And like I said, he's got one of those looks on the Bible that most people don't have. Most of the people that I came up with, the people who were church folks, his he believes that Jesus, the term Jesus is more of a philosophy placed onto a man as opposed to it being the man himself. So that's an interesting concept, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would beg to differ with that. Yeah. So you got another book coming out. He said next month or April. So we're gonna have him back. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna order one of his books. Probably should have did that before he came on and read it, but I'm gonna go ahead and order one of his books and read it. And we're gonna throw down again, man, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up, man. Call it an early night. But before I go, y'all know I gotta hit y'all with the programming notes. Tomorrow, my man will be here. Brother K.I.T. will be in the house, and he'll be talking all things techie. I'm pretty sure y'all are familiar with my man, Brother K.I.T. He was supposed to come last week, but last week we had a big old storm, man, and the internet was acting crazy. It was going in and out. Everything was messing up. He agreed to come back. Brother K.I.T., y'all know he's part of the team. He's the official timekeeper of the T.P.O.T debates down here. And Brother K.I.T. will be here tomorrow, man. He'll have the floor, man, and he'll be throwing down, and he'll be talking all things tech. So make sure you hear tomorrow, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You Negroes know. Open your minds.
Hours of power. Hours of power. Hours of power.
And so a community is where you control your police, you control your commerce, you control your education, you control your house. We don't control none of that. We live in a hood. Huh? Well, what about the Negroes that get out? Oh, well, see, my cousin, they say he's a multi-millionaire, almost at $1 billion.
The popular thought
3 PhDs, working on 2 more. Driving down the street in Chicago in his Rolls Royce, enjoying himself, and he hears these sirens and looks to the mirror and sees this cop car flashing lights. He squeezed the steering wheel, man. Heart beats fast. Because he knows the price of a Negro, what it could be. And then when that cop car passed him by, he said, thank God he wasn't after you in the first place, punk. That Negro thing you can't get away from. It's universal. They wasn't coming after you. with all your millions, with your Rolls Royce, with your PhD, didn't help. That's the hood. Huh? Why do you think you never pick up the paper until you read over and over and see white families come? You think it's thousands of black cops in America. Why don't you see white families crying as black cops shot my loved one 42 times in the back of the head? Why do you think black cops don't do that? You think they're more spiritual? Think they're better good? No! They got enough sense to know that white folks ain't gonna tolerate it. And I will stop in our neighborhood when we decide we will not tolerate it. Now, if we was organized, which is hard to organize people who are just gonna run crazy and you don't know you're crazy. But if we were, with the money we have, and the many people who would come to our aid that don't know what it's like to be a Negro, and we said, if we said, look, we saying, if we don't get a federal law to deal with police brutality, that any time a cop or anybody carry a gun, have to have a license just like you used to drive a car. And if you use it wrongly, you'll lose your license. And if it's upheld, you can never work again as a cop or a store guard or a private detective. How do you get Congress to push that through? Well, you take your economic power and you call on your friends, black, white, young and old, and say, this coming Christmas, if we don't have a federal law to outlaw police brutality by law, then we call them for a nationwide boycott of Christmas and it'll start on Thanksgiving. Well, let me tell you what that means. 79% of all retail in America happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People stay in business all year, lose money just for Christmas, huh? Well, what happens now? Factory Avenue, Toys R Us, Sears and Roebuck, Westinghouse. They will get the bill, and all they got to do is make one phone call and say, Harry, that's the senator, I want that bill pushed through in 3 days. Okay, it's an economic thing. It's that simple. But we have the power, but the system has wiped us out so bad.
Hours of power. Hours of power. Hours of power.
San Antonio, Lincoln 6. Go ahead. Clear suspect down, 10-4. That's 10-4. The officer's code 4. We have one suspect that's been shot.
Open your mind.
Only from T.P.O.T. Media. Open your mind.